sir. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Wareham Planning Board for Monday, March 13th, 2023. I'm going to start articulating the fact that these meetings are recorded and can be viewed on online and on WCTV. At which point it is 6:01 p.m. and we will call the meeting to order with a roll call. Sherry Quirk?
Here.
Mike Baptiste?
Here.
Jane Gleason?
Here.
Sam Corbett?
Here.
Carl Schultz?
Here.
And Chair Michael King is here. We have a full board. Preliminary business, approval of meeting minutes for February 13th, 2023. I know they were sent out a little bit on the late side. Did everybody get a chance to review? And are there any concerns?
Only comment I have is that I'm not Schrodinger's cat, and I can't be here and not here at the same time. So it records me as present and absent. Just for a note, I was not at the 2:13 meeting.
You weren't? You were here in spirit?
In spirit. Schrodinger's cat is a famous paradox, but never mind. About existence and
Or the lack thereof?
so other than that note, I have no other comment. I was not present, but I did view the video.
Okay, good. Yeah, that is pretty interesting, isn't it? We'll call that a Scrivener's error and make a note to delete Mr. Schultz as present and leave him as absent. So with that correction, I would entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes for February 13, 2023, with the correction of Mr. Schultz not being present.
So moved.
Second? We have a motion by Carl Schultz, seconded by Sherry Quirk. All in favor? Sherry?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Sam?
No.
And Carl?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, 5-1-0. And sign those right now before I get yelled at. Oh, no, actually, you sign them before you get yelled at.
Okay. Oh, jeez.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, I want to work off of my agenda, because I've got notes on my agenda. Okay. Continue with preliminary business, discussion of guidelines for preparing planning board minutes. Sherry, I'd like you to take lead on this. You spent so much time on it.
Sure. This is a topic we've discussed before.
Many times.
And this is an effort. This is basically a discussion piece to see if we can get to a comfortable point on these minutes. And I'll let you know, I've spent some time looking at some, black letter law and with town council on this to see what it is that is required, thought about what it is that would be helpful, and came up with these guidelines, which are a mixture of both. I think one of the things that we have deliberated over in the past is, are the minutes part of the record, or is the videotape the record of what has happened at a meeting? And the answer to that is that the minutes are important in the sense that they need to record all the motions and decisions that are made. But in terms of the discussion of that occurs at the meeting, that is, as it is captured in the minutes, is not necessarily part of the record for whatever is stated in the minutes as to what happened other than the motions and the votes. So I guess the effort to try to capture not only the content, but at times the tone of what's been said, I think is not necessarily, it's not required. And this is a situation where we probably need to balance shortcomings and resources with what could be helpful to those of us who are on the board or members of the public in the future. And what this set of guidelines does is to say, the minute recorder will record who talked about what subjects, and we'll capture that so that someone afterwards looking for particular discussions of topics in the minutes can go through the minutes and search and find when, a particular subject was discussed. But the nuances or the content of what was said really needs to be discovered by watching the videotape. And in that regard, as Mike has explicitly said that the meeting is being recorded, we are going to say, if we go along with this, that the minutes, that videotape is part of the record, so that a court on appeal will look at the videotape for what was said by whom, as opposed to looking at the minutes. So I'd have to say, for me, that does a lot to alleviate my concerns about how something in particular was cast. Now, the other issue that came up in discussions with town council is, since he is the person who represents us on our appeals, it is very important from a legal standpoint for the documents that have been discussed to be captured, and any discussion of those documents to be captured at least in broad brush. And so there are some special provisions here about discussions of documents, really what I would call identification of documents, so that, afterwards, someone looking at the minutes or watching the videotape who should also have access to the documents can tell the documents that were discussed and what was said about them. And then town council has advised that to the extent that we as a board are talking about a decision that we're making and providing a basis for it, it is important and helpful to capture that as well. And then any discussion of conditions, I think, is also helpful as we go back to write a decision, and we can capture what conditions were discussed and bring them forward for discussion as part of a decision. And I think those are the broad outlines. I think what would be helpful is if we could have a conversation about this, and we can make sure that what we're proposing here falls within the art of the possible. And in particular, what he has advised is that it's important to have a place, whether it's digital or physical. He would probably like both, but at least physical, where the minutes and the documents can be found, so that someone, for example, representing us on appeal, can go to one place and figure out, what the documents are and what's been said about them. So that's basically it. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, I don't know who takes the minutes right now, but they have to be trained on how to put together the minutes. And Ken, you have to make sure there's a place all of it can go, the hard copies. So if somebody does come into the office, we know where they are, they can review them.
They're required to go to the town clerk, so the town clerk has all the hard
Okay.
copies.
So when we submit the minutes, who submits the minutes to the town clerk?
The clerk of the board signs the minutes of the meeting.
And then you send them to Michelle or the town clerk?
Well, they get signed, and then they go back to the planning office.
But who then gets that to the clerk? That was my question.
So at that point, it would be either Sonia or Jonathan.
Yeah, that'd be in our office, takes it over, walks across the hallway and across the town
All right,
clerk.
and then,
Now, does the clerk also have facilities to store the discs for the meeting, for the videos
No, we store the discs ourselves
in the office?
in the office.
Okay.
Okay, but
or in
we're-
the library downstairs.
Okay, so, but now,
Be one or the other, because to Sam's point, it has to be in one place.
Well, it can be in two places, but in one place, it needs to be both the minutes and, well, the minutes, the videotape, and the documents that have been discussed.
so my understanding of what you're saying, to Mike's point, is the package that goes to the town clerk should include the approved minutes,
And the disc.
a copy of every document that was discussed at that meeting,
Correct.
a copy of every so that way we have the record of, if we get a new plan set from an applicant, if a citizen presents a thing, that gets attached. I'm just making sure I'm understanding what you're saying. That gets attached to the minutes along with the video, and the town clerk will then file it. It has a place to file it so that a request for whatever, a Freedom of Information Act or whatever it's called, would then be able to pull that entire package back. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, although
I can
I'm,
support that.
rather than focusing on FOIA, I'm more focused on the integrity of the documents.
FOIA was the wrong word, I said,
Right.
but if we want to go get a copy, that's what I was trying to.
Yes.
I would recommend that it not be a hard copy, though. I would recommend it be a digital copy to save on paper and save on space that we don't have in the town hall.
And, okay, we don't necessarily get a digital copy of everything that's
Well, then-
presented
Yeah,
at
we
every
do
meeting.
get digital copies of, unless it's a handout at the meeting that,
Well, at that
of
point,
images.
it would have to be identified as to what project it goes to, sent back to the planning board office in the box, at which point it's scanned to digital format and stored with the rest.
That's correct. Each of the files we try to digitize and file.
So going forward, then, it would be important for the public to know that if they plan on speaking to a particular article or paper by a professional, whatever the case might be, that they bring a copy of it with them to present to the board.
That's right. And they could then also go to those files and their public access to those files, and they could review them as well, too.
But if we're going to put a package together that we expect the clerk to store, we need to have a copy from the presenter.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
And instructions on a website on how to do all this. Where to go,
Where to locate it?
yeah. and
So that sounds like a project. Well, let's get over the first hurdle, which is making sure that we're collecting all the information and submitting it to the clerk's office through the planning office for archiving. And then we work on how to instruct the public, how to access those archives.
Now, one of the things I would suggest you consider is the video of the meetings, because it's verbatim, and everything you say is included in that format, which means good and bad.
Well, it's part of the public record, but it really doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. It's
Well,
out there.
it does matter, and if you get called on it as well, too.
Well, if it comes out of my mouth, then I guess I gotta take the lumps. It's still part of, we're speaking in a public forum, it should still be accessible. I think we should turn in a digital copy, which Bob gives us at the end of every meeting, of the meeting. And we turn that into the clerk's office, or to planning office, with any documentation that may go along with the meeting. And it gets given to the clerk, if that's where it needs to be stored, to be archived. Good, bad, or indifferent. I mean, you can't start censoring the meetings because you're afraid of something you said. That doesn't make any sense to me. So,
Well, it's interpretation at the time as well, too.
well, I think a video version of it is probably the best way to interpret what somebody's trying to convey. Sometimes the written word, there's no emotion, there's no inflection. If you watch the video, you know what's going on. You can hear the words, you can see the body language, it's all right there to interpret.
I agree, but I'm just warning you, that's the case. So it's all going to be there.
Yep, it will all be there, you're right.
Mr. Chairman,
Sherry, thank you.
you're welcome. And I just want to sort of back up a little bit on the point that you're making, Ken, which is that for all of us, it is important to think carefully about what we say and how we say it, because it will be, as in grammar school, it will become part of our permanent record. And so we want to be sure that we say it the way we want to.
Right. It all sounds, I mean, it sounds perfect to me. We've been looking for a way to kind of tidy up our meeting minutes. So, I mean, to me, it sounds like that's the way we should consider moving forward.
And if,
I can,
I would offer to help whoever's doing the minutes to try to meet these guidelines, if that would be helpful. I know, Ken, you have many responsibilities, and if I could help you with this, I'm happy to.
Yeah, we have a minute taker who uses the online version to take the minutes, and she sometimes doesn't get the information from the online version. The video is confusing at times, and doesn't come across clearly.
Has anybody given any thought to AI?
Yeah, we've considered it.
Yeah, I mean, the programs are evolving at such an amazing rate, and
Right.
I don't think they're very expensive,
I have run several of the meetings through
AI.
Scrivener, and it captures every it's not necessarily,
Yeah. I mean, I use an AI called ChatGPT that's free,
Right.
and it's actually pretty darn accurate. I mean, it might be something we consider going forward.
All right.
so what's our next step on this? Do we
I would
vote
say
to
let's
adopt
vote to
this?
adopt, yeah. We would need a motion to, I would entertain a motion to adopt the
Guidelines.
guidelines for preparing planning board minutes and archiving such documentation, whether it be video or written form, with the clerk's office via the planning board office.
so moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Sam Corbett, seconded by Jane Gleason. All in favor? Sherry?
Aye.
Mike? Jane?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Carl?
Aye.
And the chair-
You still tired?
In the chair votes
No,
aye.
I'm still thinking about precision, but I'm okay with this.
Finally.
Okay. Good. It'd be nice to get on the road to some clarity here.
Yeah.
Item number 3 under preliminary business, discussion and possible vote on waiver of application fee Form C resubmittal for Peyton Estates off Squirrel Island Road.
Good evening, Brad Bertolo, JC Engineering.
Good evening.
We are in the process of preparing an application to refile for a recent subdivision that was denied the last hearing, or the hearing prior. It appears that the denial is not based off of engineering plans or reviews by the consultant, but more involved with the Eversource acquisition. And we are hoping that we could refile, but get a waiver from the filing fees, except for public notice and legal ads and all that. Since most of the review is already done in that aspect.
Any thoughts or comments from the board?
When was this filed, Ken?
This wasn't filed that long ago.
It's like the second half of the last year, I think, October-ish is when we started talking about it.
Yeah, I think the first hearing was October.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm remembering. It's in that time.
It was submitted in like August, but it was about 7 weeks until we had the first hearing.
And the issue really was only the Eversource acquisition of the poles.
Correct. And a copy of the the work order.
Right, to copy the documentation showing they were going to take possession of the poles.
My comment would be, it seems a reasonable request, but what precedent would this create? Does this create a problem for the office, Ken?
No, it doesn't. We often provide benefits like this when it makes sense that they haven't caused us to any charge that makes,
There's no cost you're going to incur.
that's right.
What about, don't you have to re-notify all the abutters?
They pay for that, though. It's just the application fee that they want to get off of.
That they want to get off of? That's not a very nice way of putting it. They would like to
That's
avoid...
on videotape now, too.
Yeah, that's right, it's there for the record for all time. Sherry, you have any comments?
If there is no precedent that we're either being compared to or creating that is troublesome, I don't have a problem here.
Mr. Baptiste?
Cost of doing business. I think you're gonna set a precedent. More and more people are gonna be asking for a waiver for whatever reason. I think, no, I just can't see it. I'm gonna go on a rant over.
Jane?
I don't think I have a problem with it.
That's good to know. Me personally, you know, before we take a vote, obviously, I'm going to tell you what I think. I think personally, I am in the same corner as Mr. Baptiste. I think the avoidance of this whole conversation could have easily been done had that documentation that we requested 2 or 3 different times had been presented. We could have closed public hearing, voted on it, been done with it. So, that being said, I would entertain a motion to, I'm gonna put this on a positive note. I would entertain a motion to approve the waiver of the application fee, Form C resubmittal for Peyton Estates off Squirrel Island Road.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Was that you, Jane? So we have a motion by Carl Schultz, seconded by Jane Gleason. So that's all in favor of waiving the application fee. Sherry?
Hearing Mike's concern about creating a precedent, which is one of the things that I said would move me, I'm going to vote no.
Mr. Baptiste?
No.
Jane?
Yes.
Sam?
No.
Carl?
Yes.
Okay, and the chair votes no, so it'd be 4-2-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a question, how much is the application fee? I don't even...
$800.
$100.
It's like $2.
Okay,
Wait, it wasn't 420, it was...
It was 2-4.
2-4.
4-0. I apologize. Yeah, my dyslexia is getting the better of me. Now, the next 4, Ken, were those should be under public, continued public hearings, shouldn't they?
Not an A&R, no. An A&R is not under public hearings. And the extension of time was not under public hearings either.
They weren't, okay, just make sure. All right, so next up would be 1-23 Swebco, A&R, 13 Swifts Beach Road.
How you doing?
Good, how are you tonight?
Great.
Thank you.
Mr. Baptiste.
You don't want to do that. You might-
I'm gonna rev you right up, Mike. Thanks for coming tonight. If you want to give us a quick overview of your project, what you got going on?
So if you look at the plan,
Mr. Chairman, as we're starting and we just adopted the guidelines, you've handed out papers. Could we read those into the record?
We certainly can. So what we have is a completed application for endorsement of plan believed not to require approval, Form A, and a set of
It was dated 2/22/23.
2/22/23, set of plans for said project dated 1/31/23. These processes are gonna take a while to get used to.
that's all right.
All right, let her rip.
All right, next to the circle, that is a cell tower. That is the parcel, if you notice to the right of that, parcel A. We would like to buy that from another party, and we're combining parcel A and parcel B to make a conforming lot. And then we would like to split parcel AB from our currently owned parcel, lot 1001A, making two different lots.
1001A or 1000A?
I might have an old one in my folder. You guys have the updated one. The one that has the existing dwelling on it.
1001A?
Yes.
Okay.
Could you say your names for the record too, please?
Which
Your name.
Oh, my name? Stephen Webby Jr.
Thank you.
I'm Stephen Webby Senior.
Thank you.
It's nice to meet you both.
Thanks.
So, Swift Speech, all right, so this is the parcel over by the little Burnbury Cottage Restaurant. It's right
Oh, yeah.
across the street.
Yeah, this is right next to Damien's Pantry
Right. This-
project.
So Damien's
This
is,
on-
Damien's is the one that's going over here on 1000A?
No, it's going on 1000B. It's going on this.
On this parcel, okay.
So you're looking to combine which two lots?
The small triangle at the bottom, parcel A,
Okay. The
and
15,000
our
square-
existing lot is parcel B on the plan.
Okay, so the dotted
So-
line is between the two lots that you want to...
Correct, that we would like to combine to make a conforming lot.
So what is one,
What is D?
what is D? Yeah.
Let's see, D,
Is D the combination of the two?
yeah, so D would be the combo of the two. Yeah, sorry, it was on the crease, I couldn't see it.
So we're gonna take parcel A, parcel B, and create parcel D. That's what's gonna come as a result.
Yes.
Okay.
So you're not looking for anything other than to create the lot, yeah?
No.
No existing plans at the moment or anything of that nature?
Nope.
And the only comment I would have, we're not ruling whether this would be a conforming lot or
Right.
not. Even though you said that was
Yes,
objective.
sir,
You
yeah.
know, we're not saying that it's a conforming lot.
That's all right.
And that is listed on the plans. That's,
I checked with them. And for the purpose of the A and R, the frontage will be on Brown Road, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Is Brown Road an accepted way?
Yes, it is.
I'm kind of say, I personally don't have any issues with it. Sherry? This is an A and R. Sherry can vote. Mike, you see anything that gives you heartburn or concern?
Damien's Pantry is gonna be On 10018?
B,
The one at the front,
the one on the
one
corner
outside
of
of the
Route
circle.
6 and
Okay.
that.
up there,
I got
yeah.
you, I
Yep.
got you.
I mean, they've got lot size, they've got frontage, they've got access. Like I said, for me, I don't see anything that,
Is that 50-foot utility easement going to cause any problems?
What's that combination of the lots?
Well, it goes right across both parcels.
Yeah,
say lot 1001-A is already an existing lot with that easement going through it.
No problem. As long as they don't mess with Damien's pantry, I guess it'll be okay.
it actually doesn't even abut it.
No? The existing dwelling on 23, is that new duplex that's in there now?
Yeah, within the last couple of years, yes.
Are you the owners of 1001-A
Yes.
with the dwelling 23?
Yep.
Okay.
Nothing else?
I'm ready to,
Okay. Entertain a motion to approve the A&R request for 1-23 Swebco, 13 Swifts Beach Road, map 56, lot 1000A and 1001A.
The correct term is endorse.
Endorse.
So moved.
Do we have a
Second.
Motion by Sam Corbett, seconded by Sherry Quirk. All in favor? Sherry?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Carl?
aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Do you want to sign the,
I'm working on it.
Pass that down.
thanks.
want
Thank you.
this? Carl?
Oh, thank you. It even smells nice.
Carl's gonna smell pretty.
I feel pretty.
That's all being recorded, you know.
Did you sign,
Just saying.
did you sign a paper copy as well of the plans?
Just me or the whole board?
Either one.
I think we should do the whole board.
Since you're all here, it makes sense.
I want cellmates.
Somebody,
Can I steal your pen? I've only got red.
Is the Mylar there too?
We need a Sharpie for that.
I got
Sunday.
13123.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What happened now?
No, there's like black stuff all over me. I think it's from the chair.
Oh.
Okay. All right, next up. 2-23 Robert L. Perry, A&R 10 Squirrel Island Road, map 74, lot 1010-A1. Sure.
Good evening, Brad Bertola with JC Engineering on behalf of the property owner, Robert Perry. This property is located at number
Before we
10.
begin, could we read these into the record, please?
You may.
For project 0223, Robert L. Perry, A&R 10 Squirrel Island Road, the board was presented with a Form A application for endorsement of a plan believed not to require approval, dated March 9th, 2023, and a plan set prepared by JC Engineering dated March 9th, 2023. Stamped with Mr. Churchill's stamp. All right, let me try again. The board was presented with a Form A, application for endorsement of plan believed not to require approval, dated March 9th, 2023, and a plan set prepared by J.C. Engineering, dated March 9th, 2023, stamped with Mr. Churchill's stamp.
Again, Brad Bertolo with J.C. Engineering on behalf of the property owner. This lot is located on Squirrel Island Road. It's currently vacant. Part of this process, we're looking to create a parcel and split off some excess lot area. That's to the far western, northern portion of the property. The remaining land area meets lot shape, minimum upland area, minimum lot area. What we're proposing is labeled as parcel A, it's labeled as not a buildable lot under the current configuration, and will be conveyed in the future.
Anybody have any comments or questions? No?
This lot is currently for sale, right?
Is it for sale?
It's listed as for sale.
Is it?
Don't ask me how I know that, but
Yeah.
the mind remembers odd things.
Could be. I don't get involved with that.
Yeah, it is. I don't know whether that's typical or not, or, but it is for sale.
Well, the lot isn't created yet, so it can't be for sale, but the property is involved in the subdivision, can be part of the, can be for sale.
Yeah, it looks
Has
like
somebody,
it's,
has somebody drawn in a lot in there and made it for sale?
maybe, yeah, I don't know, I noticed it on one of the sites and thought it was interesting and wanted to ask.
Mr. Chair, through you to Mr. Buckland, your note about the will this automatically then be added to the Squirrel Island subdivision?
No, it isn't automatically added to anything, it's just creating parcels.
Oh, okay, then you mentioned a subdivision, so I was unclear what that,
Well, this is subdividing property, yeah.
oh, in that sense, it's yeah, okay, subdividing property as opposed to a subdivision.
Right.
Thank you for the clarification.
Excuse me, I'm Robert Perry. I wasn't going to come up, but we're getting a little afield, and this is nowhere near what they're doing with the subdivision. It's up the road a bit. It's
Okay.
a separate lot. I do have it listed for sale, subject to approval by this board.
Okay, thank you. It's just that Mr. Buckland mentioned subdivision, I just,
Yeah.
And, Mr. Chair, may I ask if this is subject to the same polls arrangement that we've discussed?
This lot, like all of my lots, has a pole sitting on it that belongs to the lot. So there's no issue as to electricity whatsoever.
would that pole be part of the other sale to Eversource?
Yes.
So-
We're giving all the poles, my pole, Mr. Latala's pole, everybody has a pole there.
So should
I shouldn't
that,
say, I don't know if Mr. Latala's going to sign for Eversource, but the rest of us are, and we're going to convey our poles to
so
Eversource.
this pole would be part of that deal?
This pole would be part of that sale, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
No, I'm just going to assume that, you know, this sliver of property is probably going to make Lot 1009-9 big enough that it can, at that point, be split into two house lots. That's the way.
That's
Yeah.
future.
I have several options on that little parcel, and I'm exploring them. I haven't made a final decision yet on that, but you're correct, I'm going to do something.
I mean, I'm not a land developer, but even I could figure that one out.
It has frontage, it's,
It's noted as not buildable,
right, the notes are on the plan, so.
yeah,
It has
Yeah, I don't-
frontage,
I
it
don't
has
have
the
any.
area, it has the circle, it has everything.
yeah. Anybody, Mike, you have any concerns?
Oh, we go back to the same pole issue as we have with the rest of them. That doesn't stop us from creating a lot.
Yeah, but in this case, yeah, I mean, in this case, it's just a parcel that is being created, a non-buildable parcel, and it's what soon-to-be present form.
I think in all fairness, I think we should have some kind of condition put on there that if this ever becomes deemed as a buildable lot, that the electrical pole problem is resolved ahead of time.
I don't think you can do that, Mike. That lot owns its own pole. It's right on the lot.
We're creating a parcel here that's unbuildable under the current configuration. We're not creating any new lots as part of this process.
Cutting off a little bit out of a lot that you've already approved.
We have limited,
Yeah, I mean,
Ability
I
with
don't,
an A&R.
I honestly don't see an issue with it, to be honest.
so I move that we endorse A&R for 10 Squirrel Island Road, map 74, lot 1010A1.
Second.
We have a motion by Carl Schultz, seconded by Sam Corbett. All in favor? Jerry?
Aye.
Mike?
Yeah. Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Carl?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, folks.
It is for sale.
All right, good night now, thank you. Thanks.
Ken, before you yell at me, I don't see a spot to missed it. Sign the paper.
Upper right side.
Is there a place for a date there as well, too?
Yes, there is. What's today's date?
13.
13.
How did you put it down, Mike? 3/13/2023, that's how you do the date?
And the date on that was 3/9?
3-9.
Property's been sliced and twisted around. Creative engineering.
Steve's getting his steps in tonight.
This is yours.
Thank you. Next up, 7-20 Borrego Solar System. Next up, 720 Borrego Solar Systems Incorporated, 27 Charge Pond Road. Same company, same request, so we're gonna hear 9-20 Borrego Solar Systems, 150 to Honnet Road in the same context. Is there anybody here? Good evening.
Good evening.
Good.
Is this on?
Yes.
Jared Connell with New Leaf Energy, and with me is Dean Smith, also of New Leaf Energy, formerly of Borrego. And I believe on the phone we have attorney Greg Sampson as well.
Okay, welcome. Before we get too far into it, I just want to read into the record a letter concerning this project from Womble Bond Dickinson dated March 8th, 2022, concerning decommissioning estimates for special permits and site approvals. Case number 9-2150 to Honnet Road, and case number 7-2027 Charge Pond Road. Okay.
We had something from Ms. Hayes and Mr. Cosgrove, I believe.
Nope, I have one here. We have also read into the record as a hard copy in my possession, much like the letter from Womble Bond Dickinson, from citizens opposed to extensions of 27 and 150, care of Barry C. Cosgrove, dated March 13, 2023. I don't have anything else in my
There
possession.
was something from Annie. Look at the email.
Yeah, I'm gonna refrain, I think we should try to refrain from items that have been uploaded to the website, and maybe just stick to what's presented to us at the meeting.
If we're going to discuss it, it needs to be on the record.
Correct. And if somebody comes forward to discuss this, then we can bring it to the record
All
at
right,
that point.
that's fine.
All
That's
right.
fine.
just continue to refine our process here. Okay, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, I think I can bring us up to speed. The board might recall, I think we've been appearing in front of you folks since mid-October of last year with respect to, we've been seeking acknowledgement of good cause due to interconnection delays on our projects located at 27 Charge Pond and 150 Tyhonet Road. In terms of recapping where things stand, I think we started out providing some details in the timeline of the interconnection delays that the projects have experienced with Eversource. And then since then, much of the focus, certainly most of the recent focus, has been around decommissioning calculations. We've recalculated the decommissioning numbers on a couple of occasions at this point from the ones that were approved with the original permits a couple of years back, in an attempt to help the board become comfortable in the event that, that we're covered with adequate decommissioning bond amounts in the event the system needs to be taken down. We've been asked to review and respond to a couple of different items detailing alternative decommissioning calculations to the ones that were used in the initial permits and peer-reviewed with the initial permits. Initially, I believe there were some materials from somebody in Charlton, and more recently from the National Renewable Energy Laboratories. We responded most recently in a letter of last week that was just read into the record from Attorney Sampson. To summarize that, we've taken a deeper look since we appeared in front of you last at the NREL figures. We still can't quite square how NREL came to their numbers that were in that report, but nevertheless are willing to adopt the dollar per megawatt figures from the NREL report, so long as future adjustments can be made to that amount. You'll recall that the permits themselves have a built-in review threshold or update threshold. I believe it's once every 5 years that they need to be updated, and we'd like to work with the town's peer reviewer to update and refresh in at least those increments, and perhaps prior to pulling a building permit. One of the big things that we did get out of the review of the NREL numbers is that the vast majority, I think almost all of the costs that are in that table, I believe on page 11, are fairly readily obtainable. So we believe that we could work with, amongst ourselves and with third parties, to get actual costs at the time that we get that first update or refresh, and just make sure that the amount of the bond is adequate for the amount for that first 5-year increment, should something happen, if the system would actually need to be taken down.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Schultz?
Just a question for clarification. What is the date of the decommissioning plan we're currently? Sorry, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant. What is the date of the document that we should be reviewing at this point?
I believe, Dean, you probably have it, but I believe the most recent one was sometime in January.
It was actually December 7th was the last time that we revised. We've been back before you since then, but that's the date of the most recent
And then
decommissioning plan.
this letter then would be an amendment or an attachment or an adjustment to that. Are you going to resubmit an updated plan? Is that your intention, or
Well,
how do you want me to review it for whatever decision we make?
But the direction that we had gotten from the board before was that you are basing your decision on the NREL estimate. So the one that's in the study is what that number resulted from.
I'm just trying to put the final record. So if I take the December decommissioning plan and the attorney's last letter, that's what we're working on.
Yeah, well, just to be clear on the proposal, like, our numbers still are less than what's in the NREL report. So what we're saying is these are our best and current, best and final best guesses at what it would cost to take the system down today. They are still not up to the, I think the $300 per kilowatt number that's in the NREL report. So what we're saying is we'd be willing to accept that higher $300 per kilowatt amount, so long as we have the opportunity to refresh that.
I understood that. I'm just trying to make sure that when I review the final submission, I'm looking at the right set of artifacts.
Yeah.
So the decommissioning plan and all the steps and everything, except for the number that's in the latest letter. That together is the decommissioning plan and the bond that we would condition.
And insofar as the board feels that amount is insufficient, we would accept the $300 amount so long as we can
Right,
refresh that.
okay, so there's nothing except those two documents that I need to review.
That's correct.
Okay. So currently, then, we don't have a revised decommissioning plan based on NREL figures. We just have your assertion that you'll live by them for the time being.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Absolutely.
I guess, actually, it's going to be more than one question. So you are willing to live with the NREL numbers and understand that at a later point in time, at regular intervals, we will be revisiting these numbers, and they may go up or down, depending on our future knowledge of the underlying costs. Am I understanding that right?
That's correct, yep.
And, but you're not asking us to agree to another interval for review other than that 5-year period that's in your approval, is that right?
Well, we'd like to make use of that, the 5-year increments that are built in, but it does seem appropriate to us that we're going to have a package that we're going to submit to the building inspector for approval of a building permit. That seems like an appropriate time to update the amount initially and then move forward in 5-year increments from there.
Are you asking us to agree to that? Because that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Why would you think that our concerns and positions about decommissioning values would change from tonight to the time that you got your building permit?
I'm not trying to suggest that your views would change necessarily. That seems like an opportune time for us because we'll have the final plans for what will actually be built. We could get a quote for actual cost to remove it at that point in time. And to the extent that it's different from the $300 per kilowatt figure in the NREL report, it seems appropriate to have a bond that matches an actual cost from somebody that would perform the work rather than an estimate that's based on a non-specific site over 2 years ago that's not either one of these projects.
Well, I think, if I may,
Yeah, of course.
what I'm seeing in the letter from the Wumble Bond Dickinson Group is an attempt or a need to move this thing forward. There's phrases in here that are concerning for me. In the third paragraph down, estimates based on the NREL report to allow the project to proceed forward with the understanding that future adjustments may be required. Required how? It seems to me, I'm a layman, so bear with me. I don't articulate as well as I could. It seems to me it's like, I'll agree to what you're asking so that we can get this thing continued, but make no mistake, I'm going to be back asking you to reduce it. The town's view on decommissioning is based solely around protecting the town. And, I keep going back to the same phrase, and I'm going to use it again on you, I apologize. In 595.3, that the bond will be in the amount and the form determined to be reasonable by the town. And using the NREL report, for me, is reasonable. It might not be reasonable to you as far as a business standpoint and a monetary standpoint, but to say that we're going to go back, at the time of requesting building permits and have this whole thing reviewed by a qualified licensed professional engineer who, again, has no idea what 20 years from now is going to bring. I don't care how smart he is.
Well, they don't need to, the way
Well-
it's set up, right? Because the bond is meant to be refreshed in 5-year increments, so anytime that you get a cost, it's good for the next 5 years, and it needs to be updated again.
Right. But you're asking us to do that before the 5-year period. I would assert that when we set, if we agree to a bond amount, and using the NREL figures is what is reasonable to me, that once, if it's approved, that starts the clock, see in 5 years.
Yeah, to your first point, I think Greg's on the line, so maybe he can speak to what he wrote, but when he wrote, will, as could be changed in the future, I don't think he meant anything other than every 5 years is at some point in the future. So there are going to be future adjustments. That's just the way the permits function by.
Understanding they could go up.
Yep, yep. And also, just looking at the cost, if you look at the table in the NREL report, there are a number of things in there that some of them, may or may not apply wholesale. Some of them are just, to use placeholder figures for some of the line items that are in there that are not specific to these projects. Some of the line items are going to be overkill, some might not be adequate. So that's the opportunity that we want to take, is sit down with the building inspector. We're not asking for something that would not unreasonably be approved by your board. What we're saying is we want the opportunity to go in and say, well, this for example, there's a temporary fence that's in there. This whole thing is going to be fenced in with a fence that meets the National Electric Code. Like, is the temporary fence applicable for this? Maybe, maybe not. There's $75,000 per megawatt that is in the NREL numbers for removing a transformer. That may be adequate for removing a transformer at a substation, but for a transformer that's present at a project like this, that a forklift can hook onto and move onto a flatbed truck in a matter of minutes, that is probably overkill. So there are some that are going to go both ways, and what we want is the ability to sit down with the final set of plans, with the final package that goes into the building inspector, and say, look, we've got a quote for the actual removal of the transformer. We're not asking for a quote for what that's going to cost 20 years from now. We're asking for a quote for what that is today that's going to cover the project for that line item for the next 5 years. And then as it gets refreshed every 5 years, as the condition in the permit says that it needs to, we'll do that with accurate, up to the moment, or up to as close to the point in time as possible, costs.
Ken, I got a question. So, speaking in hypothetical terms, we come to an agreement, the board approves the project. They go to the building inspector a year from now, 6 months from now, whatever the timeline might be for a building permit. And they bring their estimate from their engineer that says, this is how much it's gonna cost. And Paul looks at it and either elects to work on his own knowledge or hire an engineer that you're willing to pay for. At that point in time, who decides what the end number is for the decommissioning? Has it been taken out of the hands of the planning board and put into the building inspector's hands?
Not if your condition says it comes back to the board.
Okay.
We would have, we would have to release whatever bond we imposed, even if they negotiated a different number with the building inspector, right? He can't release the bond that we impose, is that
Well,
correct?
if you're in your condition, you say that the bond is yours to release, then that's the case.
Review, adjust, release, any kind of action on the bond
Goes back to the board.
stays with the planning
Yeah.
board and does not transfer it
That's
to
just
the
a condition
building
of the special permit.
inspector. Okay, well,
May I ask another question, Mr. Chairman?
yes, ma'am.
Do you have a sense of when you're going to go for a building permit?
We don't just yet. We're still waiting on our interconnection agreement.
Right.
Right now, which we expect in a few months' time. that will actually contain in it a schedule for the upgrades that need to happen, and then for the project to come online. Right now, we're hearing that could be a couple of years in the future, and so we would time our construction so that we complete at the same time Eversource completes their upgrade. So I can't tell you with a lot of specificity right now, but I think we will have that interconnection agreement with a schedule in it in a few months' time.
And so you'll have an interconnection agreement, but you won't actually be able to interconnect, right?
We will be once all their upgrades are complete.
Okay.
That's why we want to time the construction, so we're not building the whole project 3 years before it can interconnect.
And just looking at that, the Pilgrim's study proceeding, looks as if their schedule for completion is about 4 years.
They're saying that it could be as long as, but they're also, they're being instructed by the Department of Public Utilities to allow for a phased implementation approach. So projects that can come online earlier than that bookend date may be able to come online earlier.
But you don't know where you necessarily fit into that, right?
We don't know. No, we won't know for a few months.
Mr. Clerk, just to clarify,
Sure.
just to make sure I understood what you said. So you would actually begin construction before Eversource completes their upgrades?
Correct, yeah, we would try to time so our construction completes around the same time that they do.
So you could in fact build this and Eversource could have a problem and never complete their upgrades?
Theoretically, I guess, but I think that would be pretty
Okay, that's a risk that the town now is taking on. Okay, it's a risk. It may be small.
Yeah.
It's one of those risks, small probability, large impact.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking, man, if you guys have that risk, then we have an even bigger risk, because if we spend all the money constructing the project and that never happens, then we're in.
Yeah, then you won't have the money. You won't have the money to decommission it. So, okay, it's a risk. So,
Yeah,
if you begin in parallel, I'm just understanding how the project's going to evolve.
yeah. And,
I mean,
you know,
your position makes sense.
Well, they're a huge publicly regulated utility. If they ran into and there are hundreds of megawatts that are depending on this, so if they ran into an issue and never completed, I think that they would have a lot of answering to do in that case.
Well, never could become 10 years instead of 4, but in the scope of your project, that might as well be never.
I mean, there could be opposition to their construction, opposition to the project that could delay it or, have it canceled. So, I guess I'd always thinking of the town and conservatively, I would certainly recommend that we do the more conservative thing.
Agreed. Sam? Mike? Jane?
I'm good for now.
No?
Now, Mike, you may recall also that we talked with town council about this. And he was, first of all, he was not convinced that the interconnection study process was an adequate rationale for, or constituted good cause for the delay. And I think it would be helpful to him to bring forth more information on that point. And he also expressed worry that this project is getting to be stale, in his words. But I think his concerns would be alleviated by, decommissioning amounts that we would deem to be adequate for this project.
And he made mention of the form of surety, right? You talked through cash, and he came out, he was okay with a different kind of bond,
That's
though, right?
correct. That was actually in connection with another case, but
Oh.
since his view is that cash as security is not necessary.
But what form of security was he recommending?
He was recommending a bond issued by an issuer that is on the Massachusetts list of approved sureties.
Okay, that would be acceptable to you?
That's a fairly typical instrument that we would use, yes.
By the way, an insurance bond also by local bylaw has to go before the Board of Selectmen for approval.
What about the review on the bonds? If a bond should go unpaid, what's the trigger mechanism that the town is made aware of?
That's in the bond. It'll say what happens when if there's a
Wow.
default or,
Okay, but again, you know, small risk, large impact, things start to go sideways, they stop paying the bond premium. Now there is no bond, or is there a bond? How exactly is that? How is
Well,
the
that's-
town
that's when
notified
the-
that situation?
that's when the insurance company notifies the town that they've stopped payments.
That the premium is in arrears, but at that point, now does the bond cease to exist? Is there a buffer time frame that says, all right, the first time that the premium's not paid on time, 120 days from now, the bond is going to be null and void? Does it go into, you know,
It'll give you a time frame for us to take the bond, take the money out of the,
to take, so it doesn't, if their premium's due on March 1st and March 2nd comes and the premium's not paid, the bond just doesn't disappear?
that's right.
Okay.
Is that something new, Ken? It was never like that before. We've had bonds in the past that were post office box. Town went, looked for the bond money wasn't there. We had to put something in writing that the town was on notice if the bond was lapsed or whatever, otherwise you never know. They come back 5 years now, what bond? That bond's gone.
That's why the selectmen wanted to take over the approval of the bonds as well, because of the problems that we're having with the boards and the bonds that they were getting.
But it had to be the documentation had to be in place stating with the bond company also that we were involved, that the town got notified if that bond, anything happened.
That's right, and that's the reason why they're Massachusetts licensed bond surety companies, so that we get that notification.
Yeah, because I know it wasn't like that in the past, because the town got burnt more than once. You know, like I said, these bond companies, a lot of them work out of a post office box out in the middle of Wyoming someplace.
Right, and that's the reason why the selectmen wanted to review, and they do that review and make sure that it's a reputable firm.
So that would be a condition, should we approve the extension,
Yep.
that the select board has to,
Has to approve the bond.
right.
Well, and that the bond should have the town
That also should be.
be informed.
Yeah, that should also be a
in case of
condition, yes.
non-payment.
Yep.
So, I mean, for me, I think at this point, the last piece of the puzzle is just getting the revised decommissioning plan with real numbers on it. We don't have that yet.
Either that, or we can staple Mr. Sampson, Attorney Sampson's letter to the plan and approve it that way, and state specifically
Yeah, but,
the amount. It's up to you.
well, I'm uneasy about not seeing a hard and fast set of numbers on a piece of paper.
Well, that's why I asked.
Yeah.
So, but if you do
Mr.
that,
Chairman?
you can't close the public hearing.
This isn't,
Oh, this isn't a public hearing.
this isn't a public hearing.
Yep.
I'm sorry?
It's Greg Sampson.
Oh, okay.
Great.
Mr. Sampson, yep, thank you. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I apologize for not being present. I was not going to make it time-wise to be there in person, and but I apologize. But again, I think we're unable to provide you an estimate that shows numbers that match the NREL. But if the condition is that the approval is based upon the 368 per megawatt, 368,000 per megawatt at 300,000, that number is what we're willing to accept. But we
why
can't
is it-
back into those numbers if we don't think that they're accurate.
Well, it's not a matter of you thinking they're accurate. I mean, the representatives here have already stated quite clearly that they don't agree with the NREL numbers. But, you know, I refer back to that phrase in the town bylaw that says that we are looking for a decommissioning bond that we feel is reasonable and adequate, and the NREL numbers are that. So you know how big your project is, you know what the per megawatt cost is. Pull out a calculator, do the math, figure out what the number is, and that's what we would expect you to agree to.
Okay, I understand. So you want us to
Something like
do the
that.
math and, yep, go ahead, Jared.
Well, I was just going to say, Dean is a licensed engineer. I don't want to speak for him, but he came up with the numbers he came up with, that when he puts his stamp on something, that's his professional engineering license. He can't just make numbers up that he doesn't believe in and stamp them.
No, but that's not what the decommissioning plan says. The decommissioning plan says, here's the work we're gonna do, and here's the amount of surety we're gonna put up.
Right.
There's nothing in our bylaw that says how to calculate that, which is a gap, we agree. But all it says is there shall be a plan, which you've very clearly articulated, we're gonna do this, we'll remove that, we'll take this out. Now, in coming up with your estimate of the bond, you use that for calculating, but there's nothing that says that in the decommissioning plan where we make a bond statement, that it can't just be a number, and you say, the number was calculated in the following way.
There are a number of gaps if you read through the NREL report too, where one of the reasons why we didn't do that and why we opted to say we'll go with the NREL logic is that the NREL numbers don't even say if they're in AC megawatt increments or DC megawatt increments, so.
Okay, so then there's more work to do on the decommissioning plan. My point only is.
Not really, it's up to you at this point. What number do you think is adequate? Should we multiply it by the AC megawatts or the DC megawatts?
Okay.
We can do that and submit it.
That's fine. The other thing is, and this is a discussion that I've had with the board as well, is I don't think that we should approach your decommissioning plan on a line item the bond on a line item by line item basis. Yes, it gets built up on a line item by line item basis. And as you said, some numbers are going to be too big, some numbers are going to be too small. The issue becomes the total amount. And we wouldn't do a release. This is a debate I've had with the town, or with the planning board. We wouldn't do a release on a line item by line item basis. We would come up with some other mechanism for a release, because you could release all the ones that were low estimates and still be left short at the end.
Well, that is the method that the NREL report did. They came up with a table, they came up with the total, and then they divided it by megawatts. So however you do it, you end up with $1 per megawatt figure,
Right,
but it's all a buildup.
That's right. I mean, you have to build it up somehow. I agree to that.
Yep.
All I meant is, and I'm not challenging your estimate at all. I think it was done in good faith, and I don't question your engineering background. We're now moving into the realm of uncertainty. So you could say, your calculation is fine, we accept your calculation, now we're adding an uncertainty, a risk premium. That's another way to look at it. We want a risk premium of this amount over your estimate.
Carl, can I add an observation in there?
Yes.
That we're not asking you to revise your estimate, we're asking for a plan.
Okay.
Two different documents.
Okay.
That, yes, you have to stand by your estimate under your best professional expertise, and that's fine. But this is about a plan, not an estimate.
Right, and that's why I say, if you want to look at it as a risk premium over and above your plan, that's a way to look at it, that we're asking for.
Okay, I'm still not 100% certain exactly what you're asking me for.
We just want to, Mike is asking for a revised decommissioning plan that has a number in it that is,
Based on what we've agreed to, what we've been talking about.
and the question.
Not
I could
necessarily directly
I could
related
reference
to your
their
estimate.
report and just calculate the
This is-
total.
I'm looking at the decommissioning plan, the revised plan that was brought forth to us by another project. And they did very much like you did. They broke it all down, have all the numbers, and then in a highlighted block, they state, much like you, that they don't concur with the example of the per megawatt decommissioning per the NREL report, but they are agreeing to abide by our request, and they give us a block number. They don't try to back into each line item to make the math work. So based on this one, which is only 2 weeks old, It's $458,000 per megawatt, and then $50,000 per megawatt for the battery storage. So their particular plan rose, roughly 300%.
Were those AC megawatt increments or DC megawatts, does it say?
I think it's AC. I mean, I've tried to reverse engineer those numbers, and it seems to me that they're AC numbers.
Okay, so
Does that sort of
That
sync?
makes more sense.
Yeah.
When you read the entire NREL report, their bottom line number was based on assuming that it would cost half of what it costs to install the system to decommission it. So they made a blanket assumption off the top, and then the line items that they present in the report look like they were calculated to make it work out to the number that they wanted at the bottom line.
Looking at this one, it does say the size of their project is listed as AC.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
And the actual number from the NREL report is $368,000 a megawatt. That's the bottom line number in that report.
Okay, and how big is your project? I don't have that in
They're
front of me.
5 megawatt AC.
Both of them?
Yes, they're both.
Okay, so you're talking about roughly $4 million, give or take, and that's not including, well, that's, you gotta calculate the battery storage into that number as well.
Okay, so you would want to see a number for battery storage on top of this?
Correct.
This estimate, okay.
Would want to see.
Would one. We would want to see it. It's included in the last
I wasn't clear.
project.
Did you say would?
Sorry, would, yes. I'm just clarifying what
Yes,
the
no, we're in
chairman had
agreement
reported there.
Yeah. So I think, like I said, for me, the next step would be to have your estimate in printed form submitted to the planning office with the NREL document, the NREL figures being used.
Okay,
And then
so
at that
I could
point,
use the same plan and then at the conclusion, say,
You can have your,
this is the bond amount based on the 368,000
correct,
per megawatt, plus such and such for decommissioning of the battery.
Right, yeah, we weren't asking you to recalculate.
Okay.
You re-estimate your.
I understand now, so I'm not trying to
No, we have to be clear.
manufacture
The whole
line items that
purpose
come up
is
to
to
that.
be clear.
Right.
Okay, I can do that.
and the 458 that I mentioned, that I wasn't looking quite closely enough. That has the 25% contingency.
Okay.
So
And that's probably for recycling, as opposed to, putting them in some kind of waste disposal facility.
The NREL report does assume that.
And it is listed in theirs as
Yeah,
well, that it's
Since
it's
the last
recycled.
time we appeared before you, I did discover that there are recycling programs that are already being established across the U.S. There's actually a company here in Massachusetts that will recycle them. So as more and more systems are decommissioned and the volume increases, it's going to be more profitable for those
Right.
companies to
And
exist.
having information about those firms
Would be
allay fears that some of our.
My next question.
Yeah, our citizens are, I mean, it may be beyond our remit to regulate that, but to allay the fears that these are going to be recycled in a environmentally
Yeah, if we
safe way.
If we could get some information on those companies, not only
Sure,
about the company
it's-
itself, but perhaps their success rate with the percentage of materials that are truly recycled during the process, and how much of it ends up being scrap.
Are they being regulated or licensed or in some way certified?
I haven't really been able to find out too much information about it. The program was established by SEIA, which is, a reputable organization for the industry. But they have information on their website. I can provide links.
That would
for
be
the board.
very helpful for the citizens of the town and for our committee. So
Okay.
we're aware of how important all these alternative energy programs are to the future of our country and our town, but we're just trying to get our arms around all the uncertainties, and it's evolving very quickly.
When would your 5-year sort of review period be over in any event?
Well, typically, the conditions require the bond to be in place at the time of building permit. So in my mind, that would be the trigger. It's
Actually, no,
really at
we
the
should-
board's discretion.
I actually don't recall what the initial permits said. I mean, there was an amount that was peer reviewed 2 years ago when the permits came, so I would assume that was the first line in the sand, and the next one would be 5 years from that,
Yeah, I would think
I
that.
think.
So you have already posted a bond? No?
The
Or
bond
there's a-
doesn't
Condition to
get,
post prior to
Okay,
receiving the building
okay.
permit, I believe.
So the natural period for review would be 5 years from,
2.5 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if
Okay.
I would agree with that. I would think that the period, the review, the 5-year review the clock would start at the time and date that we approve whatever it is that's submitted, not,
Yeah, I don't know.
not 2.5 years ago.
If we weren't here tonight, but
Right.
when would the next one be?
right, yeah, that was my question, yeah. So Carl alluded to this. Hopefully tomorrow night, the Select Board is going to establish an alternative energy committee to look at, among other issues, the decommissioning issue. And I think what Carl is alluding to, I would like to state affirmatively as well. It would be helpful if you could provide us information and support during the committee's review of this issue in particular. You know, more information is always good. Your perspective is going to be good. And so I would just encourage you, if asked to volunteer, that you do so.
Certainly, yeah, when did you say the next thing is?
It's a meeting tomorrow night of the Select Board.
That would be establishing.
to establish it.
Yes,
We
it's just to
we have
establish it.
participated in other towns in similar committees, so we're happy to participate and give our input in those processes.
Good. That would be helpful.
Okay, so based on tonight's discussions, then we will schedule this 27 Charge Pond Road and 150 to Hornet Road to come back before us for the next planned meeting, which is, the 27th.
Yeah.
In hopes.
We're doing Zero Charge Pond Road that night as well. I mean, I think these are fairly,
I think-
getting to the point where they're fairly manageable,
Yep.
these discussions.
Yep.
I think
I agree. So, March 27th, if you could have the figures for us and hopefully the information on the recycling well before the date. You know, I'm not that you're guilty of it, because you've been great, but I'm not a fan of 11th hour information. It doesn't
I'm not
work
either.
very well.
Yeah, these are two relatively simple things that I think we can.
So,
correct.
just going back to the revised decommissioning plan, do you think it would be possible for you to add a statement generic enough saying that you're going to, in disposal, recycling will, I don't know, some kind of statement that says you're going to use yeah, I mean, but also you're going to select whatever is best in class at the time that does all the, we're trying to say in the future, that will be a consideration of your disposal plan. You're going to select a firm that's why I'm saying, I'm stretching, reaching for the words, but
Competent, capable of recycling, or something to that effect.
environmentally safe and, as you said, right now, there's no certifying boards, so we can't point to a standard yet.
But there's very little law in the books in Massachusetts about this, I think, is part of the issue.
Right.
With the programs or the efforts in place in Massachusetts, it's going to have to become necessary.
Right.
Absolutely, you're right.
We're going to develop a market for it.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Well, there's going to be a huge market.
There certainly is going to be with the amount of
The
solar.
problem is, right now, they're getting dumped in landfills and crushed, and that's not what we want to see.
No.
I don't think anybody wants to see that, but
No, we certainly don't.
Okay, so the 27th? We'll see you then.
thank you so much.
Thanks for coming.
And
Thank you.
Thank you very much
yeah,
for your
if-
time.
if I may, for the sake of the record, I'd like to submit a document that talks about NREL and its mission. Happy to share copies of this with you and the board. If you have anything to say about this, we still have more time. But I haven't heard you say that you think NREL is unreliable or not an expert in the area of renewable energy. But this, I think, is intended really to establish its credentials in that area.
Yeah, no, I haven't said that, and I wouldn't say that. I do think that they're a good source of information and certainly an authority on many topics. What I would say about this is that this report was largely about what to do at end of life and preparing landowners and system owners for how to best prepare for an end-of-life system, and it was not, the sole topic was not about decommissioning, and in fact, some of the authors, if you look at LinkedIn and Twitter and other places where they've referenced this report, and one of the things that they say in it is that you should never rely on extrapolations and non-site-specific estimates. You should always do get estimates that are specific to the site that is being decommissioned, which is one of the main reasons why we're focused on the refresh cycles and making sure that we get accurate costs that are specific to these projects into the decommissioning bonds
Yeah,
that are
but,
both.
you know, we don't have those costs for a major component, which is the recycling. And I know NREL's doing a lot of work on recycling now. And hopefully, over time, we're going to have more specific information. I can just hand this to you.
Thanks, appreciate it.
And whatever response, please let us know. But, you know, on recycling, that's, I think, the big unknown.
I say, can I have a
Yeah,
copy of that?
the report actually also says, the NREL report, where these figures are from, also says that by the time these projects would be decommissioned, the solar recycling will be a multi-billion-dollar industry too, so,
Let's hope.
yeah.
Well, yeah, and, I mean, hooray if it is. You know, I mean, we always want to root for success, but there's also a lot of people in this world that thought that Silicon Valley Bank would last forever, too.
Right.
So, all right, thanks so
again for your
much.
time, appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay. I should have done this in the very beginning of the meeting, and I apologize to anybody that I'm going to irritate. On continued public hearings, 12-22 Wareham, Mass. 3 LLC, 91 and 101 Ferring Hill Road. There was a request by the proponent to extend the continuance to 5/8. The problem I have with that date, and the board is more than welcome to proceed without me, but I won't be here that day. I'm going to be away.
So we have to start counting meeting attendance to make sure we keep track of who's going to be able to vote on these things, so
Right.
I think we should wait for a full board.
Okay, so, well, and I did put down that 5/22 is the next available board meeting where we'd have a full board. At least I
And
think-
they're still in the court anyway, so
Right.
we don't know when.
Right, we don't know what the outcome of that is. So I would entertain, do we have to reopen it? No.
No, you
we
don't,
didn't
just
vote it.
continue it.
So I would just entertain a motion to accept the proponent's request for continuance, selecting 5/22/2023 as an acceptable date where we will have a full board to act on the product.
Second.
We have a motion by Sam Corbett, seconded by Carl Schultz. All in favor? Sherry?
Aye.
Mike? James?
Aye.
Sam? Carl?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. 5:22. Okay. That leaves us with continued public hearings and discussion and possible vote on zoning article for town meeting. We're going to start with, even though I said I'm going to push it to the end of the list, we'll start with new Article 4A, WV1R, downtown reinvestment.
Right, and based on the last discussion we had, there were some changes that were made in the article, the way it was written up. The most important one being that the new design guidelines and performance standards were shifted into the special permit granting authorities' rules and regulations rather than the zoning bylaw. So it takes on a little bit more flexibility to deal with, and can be modified and improved as needed. I have copies here if you need any. What I did was I left some of the bigger goals of the performance standards, the guidelines, the idea that we're trying to get mixed-use development in the I don't have another copy. Here you go.
I'll share.
Here's another copy.
You can't scare me. You can have mine. Thank you.
So in the section on design guidelines, there's a goal essentially of a mixed-use development with residential and commercial and amenities that come along with the development projects that we should see or will be willing to accept in our downtown.
Has there been any interest in the downtown, knowing, from developers knowing full well that this is in the future possibly?
Yes, there has been. But one of the things there are a couple of things that has to be done before the developers will spend the money and take the time to do the work. And that's the aggregation of property or the development rights over Merchants Way that we have to consider. Because typical of an old village center, you have small lots that aren't big enough to accommodate the kind of development you need to build to make it financially feasible. There's a certain level of, a certain number of square feet and number of units that are needed to make it economically feasible. But it's a typical kind of development with a podium style or pedestal or platform style of development where a concrete form is built underneath, essentially raising up the beginning of the usable space. So parking's underneath and you have stick-built construction above, so that the living space or the commercial space is in those 3 or 4 or 5 stories above the platform.
Right, yeah, that part of it, I think we've discussed at length. Dan, you had?
Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Dan Butler, Chairman of the Wareham Redevelopment Authority. Thank you again for having this public hearing last month and continuing it to this month. As Ken pointed out, as a result of the discussions we had at your public hearing last month, we went back to the drawing board. Ken made some significant revisions, refinements to the article. It's better now. And we met last week at the Redevelopment Authority to review the new and improved Article 4A. We endorsed that at our meeting and are recommending to you the article as one that you should endorse. In our opinion, we think it will help us achieve what we're striving to achieve with the urban renewal plan and help revitalize the downtown. We will be asking the select board to endorse this article and put it before the special town meeting on April 24th.
Thank you.
There's one other thing I wanted to add into the discussion here as well, too. I'm going to hand out this item here, which is on the quantum for vote at town meeting. In the chapter 358 of the Acts of 2020, the zoning act was changed so that there, in certain instances, well, typically, up to this point, zoning amendments require a 2/3 vote of town meeting. But they came up with a new amendment because of the need for housing, where a simple majority is all that's needed for a certain zoning amendments. And this analysis that I've done here speaks to the criteria
Oh, is he sending me one?
that apply to the simple majority, which is a mixed-use development with residential in a downtown village center next to a train station or within walking distance of a train station, all meets the criteria for a simple majority. So I think that the town moderator can call for a simple majority vote on this zoning article when it comes before a town meeting.
In our train station is going to qualify as a transportation hub, even though there's no commuter traffic there?
Yeah, it does. It also isn't necessary per se to accommodate the zoning, the majority vote either, though. It's just an additive as well.
So the town can stand on the platform and watch the train go by, it doesn't matter?
That's right.
Just have to have tracks, no
Cool.
cars, no engine.
No nothing? Just a platform and,
Just the,
Can it have a screen? Could it have a screen and just flash a picture?
oh, if the train go by?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it makes sense if the state can require us to have housing near the train station that doesn't necessarily need to be a train station that trains stop at.
Right, yeah. Okay.
Well, hopefully if we build something that the trains will stop there as well, too, then. Exactly. If we build it, the train will come.
Well, I mean, I personally am all for it. I think it's way overdue. It's, even if we get this thing onto town meeting and approved, it's probably gonna be another 5 to 10 years minimum of work. And the longer we drag our feet, the faster the sea rises and the lower our chances are of attracting developers.
Mr. Chairman, I've raised some questions about the Fuss and O'Neill report and the potential rise in the level of the river there. It seems to me that that may be a worst-case scenario and, not necessarily a reason to hold this up. And I think the idea of taking the design standards and putting them in rules and regulations and having them as a living document that the planning board can work on and refine in order to meet the developing needs of the downtown is a sound idea and will, I think, help the town to get to the vision that Ken and you, Dan, and you, Peter, have discussed of a downtown that is vibrant and lively.
Mike,
Lost for words right now.
thoughts, concerns, desires? Jane?
no, I think it's a good idea. I think that this is a good idea. I think that the downtown needs some shot in the arm, so to speak.
Yeah, some help, for sure.
And I understand that there's concern about the 65-foot height, but that is something that would come before this board for review.
Right, 55's the
Right.
the benchmark, yeah.
So, yeah, I think that something's got to happen if we want our downtown to be re-energized. And I think it needs that.
Yeah, I do too. And I think, honestly, I mean, you know, Danny Warren's project is like the catalyst to get all of this going. You know, I mean, so,
Well, either food or housing has to come first, and
right,
so we get food first, and the housing should,
the housing will follow.
well, we hope that
They all
that
have to eat,
happens.
right?
And the rest of the mixed-use
Yeah.
uses. So,
I look at, not that it's an exact comparison, but, you know, I go down to downtown Plymouth a lot on the weekends for lunch or whatever, and I look what they've done across the street from the water, and, you know, it's completely changed that end of town. You know, you go down there, you know, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and there's joggers on the sidewalk and people walking their dogs, and all the restaurants are full, and so I think we stand a chance to kind of get the same kind of vibe going in downtown Wareham. It's just a matter of kicking it off and getting it rolling. Okay, being a public hearing, are there any people that, hi Nancy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy McHale, 87 Fairing Hill Road. I've been sitting back there trying to find any of these documents on the town's website, and I can't find where they're located. I'm sorry.
Well, quite honestly, Nancy, I don't believe that I don't think, unless I'm wrong, Ken, you can correct me, I don't believe the document has to be posted to the website prior to the meeting, correct?
No, it doesn't.
Right, so, I mean, they will be posted. We have Jonathan, which I failed to introduce to everybody, I apologize. Jonathan is our new assistant planner.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, and I'm going to support Nancy, one of the problems we had with getting the solar bylaw approved was the Attorney General said, how can you have public hearings when the warrant isn't available to the public?
It is available to the public, though.
So that's the question that's being
It's
asked.
not online, but it is available to the public.
That's,
Okay,
okay.
so,
thank you.
clerk's
So that was
office,
the
or-
important
Town clerk
clarification.
and the planning office, that's what is noted in the public hearing notice, that it's available in the
That the
planning office
documentation
and
is-
the town clerk.
Okay.
So that,
So that's good to know, that the documents are available, they're just not online yet.
okay, so they're not available to anybody that can't get into town hall and,
If they call
Ask
up,
for
they can be sent out, and I have sent them out as well to people who called up.
okay, so wouldn't it be easier if it was posted on the town's website someplace that people could actually?
They will be, and it certainly would be, but as alluded to in the beginning when we were discussing the new
Yeah.
process for minutes, limited resources, limited personnel, we don't want to scare Jonathan off quite yet. We're gonna-
give it a few hours.
Please don't.
Right.
Welcome aboard, Jonathan.
Thank you.
But what I have discovered already in the few short weeks that Jonathan's been with us is that he's very efficient
This is
and
a-
very detail-oriented, and I'd be willing to bet, not to put you on the spot, but I'd be willing to bet that by the time you sit down for lunch tomorrow and dial up the website, you'll see these on it.
Okay, so those are going to be on the planning board's website, on the town clerk's website?
They would be
Where-
on the planning board, since it's before us tonight, that's where they belong.
That would make sense, but I appreciate you doing the clarification.
Okey-doke.
Thank you. I appreciate all that you've been doing, just trying to make it as accessible and understandable so that you're not on the town meeting floor trying to explain to people, 4 pages of document.
Yeah, we don't want to We want to try to avoid that. We want the folks to be educated prior to town meeting.
Thank you.
All right.
I have some images that wasn't able to show last time that I can try to show this time.
Okay, we have one person that has their hand up online, so I'm going to let them speak, and then we'll look at the pictures.
All right.
Maybe.
They just have to unmute.
Okay, we'll give them a couple of seconds to unmute, and then we'll go to Ken's slide. Okay.
Come on, Jim.
I guess Ken, you're up. They'll
right.
have to wait.
This is an indication of what it would look like from the street side on Main Street. There'd be a slightly raised platform that allows the commercial space to be raised above or out of, as much as possible, out of the floodplain, so that even though Main Street would flood, it wouldn't flood the commercial space on the first floor, and definitely not the residential above. Something like this has already been built in Newport, where you can see there's stairs in the front of this building, and there is a handicapped access ramp that goes up to the upper level there, which is above the floodplain, and is where the commercial space starts, and then above that is residential, actually a hotel in this case. But across that platform is open space. It's available for access, and it leads out so you can get to access to view the working waterfront out in the rear of the property. So that is how that works.
So the rear platform is what would be in question as far as air rights?
That's right. And that could potentially link to other properties adjacent to it and become part of the overall linkages of public access.
So you'd have a continuous boardwalk along the backside of the
Right, well,
Main
it's just
Street
possible.
properties.
That would be definitely a long-term option, because it wouldn't be available until the rest of the development would occur. And as I said, the small parcels most of the parcels in there are too small to have the kind of development that makes the most sense economically.
Are you anticipating parcels being combined?
They would have to be combined, yeah, and then some of that comes from the Redevelopment Authority's urban renewal plan that has some takings of property for the purposes of positioning it for combining with other properties and making it large enough to have a development on the property.
On that piece? Okay. Is our online person ready now?
I'm here.
Okay. Welcome. If you could identify yourself.
My name is Jim Minnie, Cranberry Highway.
Hey, Jim. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, and thanks for letting me speak to this article. I'm all in favor of doing something to improve downtown and to attract business. But I think we really need to be considerate of people who live in that area also. The people up on High Street, the viewscape that may be and will be interrupted if you have 65-foot buildings, even 50-foot buildings. They've had that viewscape for hundreds of years. And if you drive down there now when it's not leaved out, you drive down the street, even at the street level on High Street, you can see the water in between buildings, over buildings. So people in the backyards and the kitchen and the second floor of their homes are going to lose that ability if they start building tall buildings. You talked about rules and regulations and design guidelines. Have those been created yet? It would be nice if it all kind of came together, so we'd be voting on one thing and understanding the totality of it. So going through some of the tables, I had a few questions. Allowing by right the brewery and tap room, which is already one in the area. Yes, but it also states in the verbiage that it would be no everywhere else. So I'm assuming that everywhere else would have to go through a special permit variance to have it in other areas, and it wouldn't be allowed in areas where you allow restaurants and similar type business. I think that's kind of restrictive. I was also looking at industrial uses. I'm a little concerned on that. Trucking and transportation. I don't know if you need that, even under the special permit planning. If you already have public service for other passenger stations, I think that covers it. On the industrial, I'd like to see a little better defined. A wireless communication facility attached to a structure exceeding 40 feet in height. Yes, I'm a little confused on that. I would not want to see anything like that, but you know, that's just me. And going through the maximum heights, going from 40 to 50, and then 65 was special planning. I'm still not, I'm not buying it, because I think you're interfering with the viewscape, and if you do allow an increase in height, and that in a sense increases the density for dwellings or residential units, there should be an inclusionary portion, because I think that's part of what triggers the simple majority vote at town meeting also. In a sense, you're almost gentrifying the center by putting these more expensive units in and not allowing for that. I think that's important. So I've said a lot. I hope you can take that into consideration. I know many of you have expressed what you'd like to see, and I'd like to see improvements. One thing I didn't see in there is requiring the trash containers and receptacles to have enclosures, unless I missed that. That's a big one right off the bat. So that's all I have to say, and thank you for the opportunity. And I do agree with previous speakers and Mr. Schultz's comment that the stuff should be online. Ken's been very good. I asked him to send it out, he sends it, but to put up online, it's not a large time-consuming task, and it would give many people an opportunity to review it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else who would like to speak? Anybody?
Hi, Peter Teitelbaum, Precinct 3. Just, the height seems to be an interesting thing here. I would hope that town meeting wouldn't try to do anything with that, because if the current height would work, you would have already seen the developers banging down our door to do something there. You wouldn't see a building like the smaller Cornwell building basically falling back into the street. You wouldn't see people hanging on to buildings down there for 10 years after they've bought them with weeds growing up around them. So if there were money to be made there, somebody would be making money there. The big restriction down there is, it is twofold. It's at the bottom where you've got the sea to deal with, and you've got the FEMA regulations implemented by the state with the 50% rule that you can't build in the floodplain anything other than something like a garage where you're not going to have damage from a flood. You're never going to get first floor heavy commercial investment there. You're not going to get heavy first floor office development there, because if you were to get these things, we wouldn't have it looking like it is. So the whole point of going up is to incentivize people to come in and make money. And I mean, it's fundamental to the whole idea of doing something down there. I also think some people are thinking that it's going to be, looking like Miami Beach down there with huge, towers just blocking the seascape. That's not the intent. 60 feet is not going to block that much. Terrace construction will take away some of the notion that it might be looming over Main Street, or the other side if that's where the person wants to keep it more open too. Let's remember there's sunlight falls on the Merchants Way portion too, so the people that are concerned about that. If you terrace things, you have a lot less visual impact. If you require access spaces in between taller buildings, you have a lot less visual impact. I will say in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, pretty much except in Onset, and I know a lot about Onset with the decree, that's about the only place around that I can think of where there's actually a right to a view that's been enshrined by a court. People don't have rights to views. They should be taken into consideration, certainly, but there's no absolute right to a view. So I think that needs to be stated. So I would ask that the planning board endorse this in its present form. Ken has worked very hard on it. He's taken in input from Sherry, he's taken in input from Jane, and these are the people that I think the planning board sort of delegated to work to come up with what you see before you now. And that's about it. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Anybody? Anybody? All right.
It's better than being nobody.
Tricia Wirtz, and I'm speaking as a citizen. So I think, this is an open meeting, and the actual wording for this article has not been presented to anyone to read. I think I have seen it. And if I did, it's the one where the last sentence says something about air rights. Is that correct? It's built into it. All I would like to ask is that you put out what your definition of air rights is, because I have seen 3 or 4 different definitions depending on what part of the country you're in. So if you guys could tell me what our definition is, I would be really happy. Thank you.
It's in the zoning statute. It's in the state zoning statute. They define what air rights are.
Please come forward and identify yourself.
Yeah. Ruining my loud voice by now.
So wonderful, Peter.
Peter
What is
Titlebaum
it?
again. This is actually in the zoning statute, and Ken might even be able to dig it up for you over there and let you know. For the state's definition of air rights and who gets to decide what to do with them. In this case, it's the legislative branch. Town meeting has to pass an article. Typically, what they would do is pass an article authorizing the selectmen to negotiate those things. That's
But what is our basic definition? Like, if I go to California, the definition is I buy air rights, which means nobody can build in front of me.
No, this is going up in
Yeah,
Massachusetts.
so
This is up
that's what I'm
over someone
asking,
else's
what the
property.
definition is.
Right.
So it would give you the right to put a boardwalk or a portion of the restaurant over Merchants Way.
Okay.
Or somebody could do cantilevered construction, where, they're within their lot, right at the ground, but then they're cantilevering out
cantilever goes over.
Merchants Way. Those are the rights that the selectmen can convey. They can't tell, the only party in front of any of that on the Merchants Way side is the railroad. And I can't imagine they would build anything or even care what the town built one way or the other.
That helps, because when I'm not a citizen and I'm playing in my other role, it would be really nice to know what it means too. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
May I add something?
Absolutely.
When we put up the article for public perusal, I think that we should also put up the design guidelines that will be part of the rules and regulations, but that should be there too, because I think that is
That would give
a critical piece to this whole package. That without the design guidelines, I think that the article sort of falls short.
Yeah, it doesn't have the content that people are looking for.
Exactly.
It would give the public
You're
a
brave.
level of confidence.
Well, I think the design guidelines are one of the tougher parts of this, but I think that that's part of people understanding what they're voting on.
I
Well-
agree with you. I think it's really important.
It's important to be clear that town meeting is not voting on the rules and regulations.
Right, but I think that's
I'm
backup
supporting that,
to
but
the-
we
to
just
the
should,
article.
we shouldn't give the impression that they're voting on that. That is
Right.
handled by a different process.
Right, that's fine, but I do think that that's critical.
I'm supporting.
Yeah, okay.
We just shouldn't create confusion about what they're
Yes,
voting on.
Point well taken, point well taken.
Was that a volunteer
Miss Ann?
statement?
Ann?
Annie Hayes, Farmers Lane. Ken, I have a couple of questions for you, and with following your comment, Jane, I think, I haven't looked online, so I don't really know, I'm not ill-informed here, but are the visual drawings on as well?
They're in the slideshow, yeah.
Oh, okay, online. About the sketch that shows the Merchants Way side of the building that has a glass facade, you know, the shops that stepped up a little bit that you showed. Do you remember that one?
I think that was Main Street.
That's on Main Street, yeah, but I'm talking about then the back of that building. I thought it was the back of the building, but when you look from a certain perspective, as if you're looking out at the water, it looks like it's all concrete slab. Do you know that one? Wow, I'm not striking pay dirt here. Okay, on the back side, towards the water, it's got to be, okay, there. So there is some greenery. My question is about that is, that's a street, isn't it? Because people are going to be coming in and parking and coming out, and there's going to be traffic there, right? It sort of looks like an avenue, but it's going to be a street, and there's going to be cars coming and going.
Well,
right?
I mean, there's cars and people on Main Street. What's the difference?
Is that Wareham?
Well, because I thought this was going to be an open space.
But that sketch has a big bridge in the background. I don't think that's what...
No, it's not
I think
Wareham.
that's a conceptual sketch.
Yeah,
I don't think it's necessarily
No,
place-specific.
that's not the one that you showed the last
Street.
time. But anyway,
I believe...
so it is a street.
Yes,
It's a street,
Merchants Way
traffic.
is going to stay, well, conceptually, Merchants Way is going to stay as a street.
And where's the railroad? Where would the railroad be in this picture?
The railroad would probably be in the green space there.
So there is no-
Oddly enough, Merchants Way is not an approved
Actual
road.
Yeah.
Right.
So there is no green space. I mean, that's what it looked like.
I think, and not to be blunt,
Go ahead.
I think you're trying to design the thing before we even get the whole concept of what could possibly be there approved.
Well, but for a visual person, I want to know.
Well,
I want to know what the possibilities are.
there's tons of
All right,
possibilities.
Here's what we got. We've got Main Street on the right there with development, and Merchants Way is that asphalt space to the left of the development on Main Street. And then you have the green space, which is the railroad tracks on the far left before you hit the water.
This is what we have now.
This is what you have now, and you have to think of the idea that to build something in there, you're gonna have to extend it beyond the footprint of the space in between. Let's see if I can get my arrow in there. You're gonna have to go beyond the footprint here to go out this way.
The whole building footprint or just the cantilever parts?
The cantilevered part, and maybe the building footprint as well, too, in some instances, to get the square footage that you need.
Okay,
Make it
so
work in this case.
what's the
And-
road now? It's going to be smaller.
And so this may not be smaller, it might be, depending on the development, but it could also be a road underneath the building as well, too.
Oh, because of the cantilevers.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, my other question to you, Ken, is you mentioned that, you know, we've all seen the pink water picture that was in the Globe, and then, I don't know if it was in the Globe, but they talked about it, the most vulnerable towns. Wareham is like poster child, right?
Yeah, we've got some serious places that are susceptible to flooding.
Very much so, and this area is one. And so the pink is, what was that, in 25 years?
Well, in something like 50 years, you'll see tidal fluctuation will be such that the tides will come up high enough that they'll actually cross over the railroad tracks down on the southern end and get into Merchant's Way.
And the parking spaces under the buildings?
No, just in the Merchant's Way area there. It wouldn't go that far yet, even in 2070. But the thing is that there'll still be storms that'll potentially come and have an effect on the area as well too. So we'll have to flood-proof if we're going to continue to build there. One of the options we have is to create more green space as well too, and that's one of the recommendations of the Urban Land Institute Technical Assistance Plan was to create some green space down here.
Sponges.
Yeah,
They call
actually, they put it in a more central location here within the buildings on the side of Main Street to have some kind of a meeting space, gets more green down there and make it more attractive.
It's a difficult design problem, isn't it?
It is.
Because we have so many variables, and I mean, climate-wise, we have so many variables. We're just starting into the hot, dry of El Nino. And what I remember you're saying was that there would be a good block of investment period, or years, that an investor might consider as a good period of return on an investment, was the gist of what I thought you were saying.
That's right.
Of 40 years.
Right.
That's what you said, 40 years.
That's right. What we want is to have private investment make the choice in this case, and not to spend our money on making it happen.
I know, but 40 years is not very long, is it?
It is long compared to my career right now, anyway.
Yeah, on mine too. Blah, 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 blah. Right. Okay, but, I live in a house that's 150 years, and my friend lives in a 200-year house. I remember, I'm going to just put this out. I remember the conversation with Judy, when Judy Whiteside was there, the first what is it? The redevelopment meeting. And she and I we didn't confer afterwards about it, but she thought we should move upland. And that's what populations always do. They move upland. So this is kind of a new idea to have sponge zones and stay where you are and have it be a good investment for 40 years.
Well, we're not making the choice to move upland either, although that's something that happens on its own. Same thing with private investments. All we're doing is saying that if we buy up some of the land, it's getting multiple flooding events, and it doesn't make sense to reconstruct. And so we create green space that can be flooded. That means the land on the other side, maybe they aggregate properties over there and start to build something on the other side. That's a possibility too. But what that requires is that there be some kind of zoning and incentives, financial incentives to build that kind of development in that area. And that's the goal of this, is to create the design character that is acceptable to the town and that we want to see happen down there. And then, in that case, then the developers will come and they won't have as much risk involved if they know that the town wants to have that kind of development in that area.
I think that's an excellent statement, and I think that gives me a much better sense of this is not a static plan that's just going to get a wash at some point. But it is going to be moving upland, and it is giving developers an opportunity to be there for a while and move up, or, move upland.
Yeah, but it's going to be organic. It's going to be based on the market demands and where people invest money in their properties.
Sometimes they're stupid environmentally, though, aren't they?
Well, yeah, it's something that that's the reason for having a redevelopment authority. Sometimes you have to step in and aggregate properties and buy up some things and take a little bit of a heavier hand to make it available for private development to make sense.
Okay. You're the heavy hand?
He's been working out.
one-fifth of it.
Thanks, Ian. Okay, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing on the new Article 4A WV1R Downtown Reinvestment.
I guess I'll second to close the public hearing.
Close public hearing, so all those in favor? Sherry?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Jane?
I'm not so sure, since we haven't posted the information yet.
Jonathan,
Well-
can we verify that this will be posted by tomorrow lunch?
Yes.
As long as it's available in the clerk's office, that's the legal requirement, I
This
think.
is just, putting it online just is another level of convenience, but it doesn't mean it's not available.
Yeah, okay.
Sam?
Yes.
Carl?
Yeah.
And chair votes aye. Public hearing is closed.
Excuse me.
Now we need a vote to recommend.
Yep.
Entertain a motion to recommend for town meeting, new Article 4A, WV1R, downtown reinvestment.
So moved.
Could I also ask that you recommend it be a majority vote as well, too?
Recommended be a majority vote at town meeting.
Right.
Wouldn't the moderator make that determination?
Yeah, you can make the recommendation to the moderator.
Okay. I've met the moderator. She won't listen to me. All right, so entertain a motion to
Amend.
recommend the new Article 4A WV1R downtown reinvestment, and also to recommend that it be a majority vote.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Sam Corbett, recommended by, seconded by Carl Schultz. All in favor? Sherry?
I'll vote aye with endorsement of the idea that getting the rules and regulations in place is really, really important. And without offering to do actual work in this area in which I'm not an expert, I'm happy to be helpful to this process, if you would find it to be so.
Take all the help you can get, Ken.
Will. Thank you.
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Carl?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Continued public hearings on Article 6 dimensions. What do we have going on there? I didn't even know that was,
It's reformatted.
Sorry.
This was a recommendation of Judy Whiteside and the town council, Rich Bowen, to write out what the changes were. So it just lists out all the changes that were included in the text. And what I thought we'd do is have it as a handout that goes to the town meeting members as well, too, so that the handout will have the list of the warrant article that has the list of changes, plus the content of the article with the changes included in it.
okay, is this up on the website yet?
No.
Jonathan?
Yes, Chair, I'll put it on the website tomorrow.
I appreciate that. I like this guy, he's okay.
But it is available in the planning office and the clerk's office, is that correct?
That's right.
So that's what the
So
AG,
same
the AG,
situation.
the AG is going to look for.
Right,
That-
that it has been made available.
Right.
Yep. All right, so this is nothing more than just a detailed description of what's going on for the town meeting attendees to peruse.
That's right. It doesn't require it doesn't require color changes in the text.
I see one Scrivener's error still in the Article 6 in the tables under building coverage. under two-family dwelling in the 30,000 square foot column, the R30 column. There's still an NR in there, and we've taken the definition for NR out of the whole table and replaced it with just a hash mark or a dash, meaning nothing.
I thought I caught that one.
Is that the only one that you caught?
That's the only one that I found, yes. NR was not required, which grammatically doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
But we took all of those out because the letters NR and NA look too similar. It's very hard to read the table without reading each individual one. You can't sort of scan it and get a sense of it. So the intent here was to pull out all the NRs and replace them. And there's not, the definition has been pulled out of the notes as well.
Yeah, I see it in item 7, what the intent is.
Yeah,
You just missed it.
yeah, right.
So-
It was a Scrivener's error that just one got missed.
Okay. Anything else from, no? Being a public meeting, is there anybody that wants to talk to this? Not even you, Peter?
No, not my monkeys, not my...
I say not your circus, not your monkey, yeah. Okay.
Ken, I did actually send you a revised copy of the Article 6 that has that correction in it. So
Oh, good.
all you have to do is cut and paste the new one in.
Thank you.
So, Jonathan, when you put this up on the website, make sure Ken gives you the revised copy with
Yes,
that correction.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Make a motion to close the public hearing on Article 6 dimensions. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Sam Corbett, seconded by Jane Gleason. All in favor? Sherry?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Carl?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Entertain a motion to recommend Article 6 for inclusion in the town spring meeting.
With the changes noted.
With the change that was just noted by Jane, which Jonathan will get from you and post to the website so everybody has it.
So moved.
Thank you, Sam.
Second.
Motion by Sam Corbett, seconded by Jane Gleason. All in favor? Sherry?
Aye.
Mike? Jane?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Carl?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Okay. So, item 5, upcoming planning board schedule. I think we've already discussed what we've got going on. The 27th of this month is 025. And then 91 and 101 Fairing Hill will be on 522. And we're expecting Borrego New Leaf to also be before us on the 27th. Upcoming workshop, discussion to schedule workshop date. Which one is this on?
It's on the zoning bylaws that you,
So, back on Article 15, that's not going to get to town meeting?
right.
Okay.
And it could be on the rules and regulations as well, too.
Okay, so, I mean, Carl, that's your baby, Article 15. Do you want to pick a date for that, or?
I thought we were going to postpone that till after town meeting.
Okay, but, oh, yeah, with the intent that we're going
Yeah.
to get it prepared for fall.
Yeah,
Right.
that was
Yeah.
the last discussion.
Okay, so,
But there are several rules and regulations that we need to, subdivision rules and regulations are pending.
Yep.
The WVR RV1 rules and regs, and we will have rules and regs for land use. So we have quite a bit of work
work to do. Do you want to schedule an off-cycle workshop for a Monday night between planning board meetings, or do you want to do it?
Sherry, when, we haven't really regrouped, and we have to sit down with Ken and just figure out what the next steps are on Article 15. So perhaps we should do that first.
That sounds
Yep.
good.
Okay. I mean, if it's something that you want to schedule during a day, I'm all in on that. It just has to be a Friday for me. It's the only
Okay,
day I'm
no,
available.
no. We'll, we got to regroup and,
Figure out when we're gonna get together.
yeah,
Okay.
and then I think there's some work to do before we come back to the planning board as a whole. And then Jane has to get the rules and regs for WVR1 written. And
Have them up on the website tomorrow.
No. So the subdivision rules and regs, Sam and I think we pretty much finished that. We just need to just get it before a public hearing and then adopted.
Yep.
We've made progress on Article 15, land use rules and regs. That needs, but it's got to be finished. And then we have this new work product.
Okay. Member comments? No profanity, please. No? All right, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
You have a second?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Sam Corbett, seconded by Jane Gleason. All in favor? Sherry?
Aye.
Michael? Jane?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Carl?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
I meant second.
Thanks, everybody.